Good morning. I'm Sidney Porter from the Health Physics Society History Committee, and it's Tuesday morning, June the 18th, 2002, and it's my distinct pleasure to be videotaping Dr. Richard Vedder, who has contributed a great deal to the profession of health physics and also to the society. He spent many years involved with the society and is still fully involved. And so with no further ado, I'd like to ask Rich to tell us about his origins and how he got into professional life. Rich, and so you want to tell us about where you were born and how you came into the profession of health physics?
Be happy to. Thanks for the opportunity. Well, I was born on a farm in South Dakota, grew up on a dairy farm where everyone was required as soon as they were able to carry a 1-gallon pail and help do the chores. In thinking back to those days, I appreciate the strong family values and work ethic that I learned there. Still have a couple of brothers back there farming, and actually farm life is a good life because you're sort of independent, you're your own boss. When you get done at the end of the day, you can see what you've done, as opposed to some of our management work. If you get at the end of the day, you go home and you wonder whether or not you've accomplished anything. But that is very, very hard work. I'm very thankful for people like that, but I don't envy them at all. So that might be one of the reasons I went to college, because it was, it's a very difficult life working on a dairy farm. So I went to college, majored in biology at South Dakota State University. A few professors I remember really had an influence on me in terms of encouraging me to go on and pursue graduate studies. I had an undergraduate advisor who really taught me to not take things at face value, but to think critically about things. And a professor of anatomy who taught me and others that learning was fun, and it was that learning was a lifelong process, but not something to be, it wasn't a drudgery, it was something that could be fun. And so I remember those days, and another professor that taught me the scientific method. So those three biology professors had a very strong influence on me.
What made you go to graduate school?
Well, I wanted to become a professor at a small college. I wanted to teach. That was my goal in life. So when I finished at South Dakota State, I applied to a number of graduate programs and was accepted at a number of them. But one of the courses that I took as an undergrad was called bionucleonics. It was taught by Dr. Wayne Harris, who is a graduate of Purdue University, from their bionucleonics program. And the course was composed primarily of radiation biophysics and some radiotracer methodology and a little bit of radiation safety. I was really intrigued by that and by the application to biology or chemistry or any other science, but in particular using radiotracers in biology. So sort of as a last-minute thing, I decided to apply to the graduate program at Purdue as well, to the bionucleonics program. And they wrote back to me giving me a full-ride fellowship. So I thought, well, I better go there. So I did. I got my PhD there and then got my job going.
And what was your specialty, by the way, in your PhD?
In my PhD, I was interested in radio tracers in the food chain, and actually studied selenium, radioactive selenium, and also how it, coming from the background, farming background out in South Dakota, is also one chapter dealt with the toxicity of selenium. And as you may know, when settlers first settled on the prairie, particularly west of the Missouri River, cattle suffered from what they called alkali disease, which is selenium toxicity. So I worked that all together into a project. Then I got a job teaching at a small college in Pittsburgh called Point Park College, teaching biology and radiobiology. I was interested in that one because they had a radiobiology. They were looking for someone to teach radiobiology, so I took that job. After being there about 4 months, I got a letter from Purdue inviting me to come back to join their faculty as assistant professor, tenure track position, but there was one condition. I had to serve as Dr. Paul Ziemer's assistant in the radiological control program. Well, that didn't seem too hard to me. I thought it was a terrific opportunity. But working for Paul Ziemer, that was my real introduction to health physics.
Paul, well, you had taken classes from Paul while you were in graduate school.
Oh,
there, I
right,
take
right,
it.
yes, right. Took health physics classes from Paul.
And,
Terrific teacher.
And who else were your major professors that still have an effect on what you do today?
One of them was Stanley Shaw. He taught radiobiology and nuclear pharmacy, and he's still at Purdue teaching nuclear pharmacy. Dr. John Christian was head of the program. He has retired now, but still lives there. And my major professor has deceased. He was very interested in a wide variety of things, radiobiology, radiotracer methodology, nuclear chemistry.
And who was that, by the way?
Dr. Wayne Kessler was his name. And so I remember in particular Dr. Kessler, Dr. Shaw, Dr. Christian, and in particular Dr. Ziemer. Dr. Ziemer was a wonderful teacher when I was a graduate student. I really related extremely well with all of the students, but held his own students to very high standards. And then when I worked for him, when I went and joined the faculty, worked for him, got to know him a lot better, and of course he's a tremendous individual, tremendous mentor, tremendous professional. So he had obviously the greatest impact on my career.
And so when you started teaching, you were teaching what classes?
I was teaching two classes. One was a portion of the original bionucleonics course, which is the radiation safety portion. It was about equal to one college credit, and an undergraduate course in health physics, which is a three credits. In addition, I had graduate students of my own, and eventually participated in graduate courses as well. But while I was teaching undergraduate courses, I did have graduate students.
See, and were you associated with the Health Physics Society there in Purdue?
Yes.
Local chapter?
Paul Ziemer, within the first year or two I was there, he encouraged me to attend the national meeting, of course, and the Midwest chapter of the Health Physics Society, which was centered in Chicago. I went with him a couple times to that meeting. In 1975, I was encouraged to, along with some other people, to become involved in organizing a chapter in that part of the country. So we organized the Hoosier chapter of the Health Physics Society, and I was the first presiding chairman during that organization year, and then the president the following year. So that was midway through my career at Purdue, which was 10 years. And at the national level, after attending a few meetings, I had the opportunity to become a member of the Training and Education Committee.
When was that?
That was, I can't remember the exact year, late
Roughly.
70s, I think, during Jim Watson's term. Jim appointed me and he taught me some things about the society and how it works as well. He was a very good mentor within the society ranks. So I really appreciated that opportunity. And it was during my second year that we established the PEP program.
Well, that's a very important program that still goes on, of course.
That still goes on, of course, so that was very good. Very good. That turned out to be a real good program.
And was that your idea to establish
No, it was
that?
not my idea. It only occurred during my term as chair of the committee. It was someone else's idea. And I don't know if I should try to speculate who that was. I think there were a number of people that were talking about something, some kind of training opportunities that we could provide to members of the society over and above the continuing education courses that occur early in the day of a Health Physics Society meeting.
Well, I know there were a number of certified health physicists that needed credits and were hoping that they could get them while they were at the meeting here.
Right. Yeah.
And so that need had occurred for some time.
Right. I think the original proposal was based on two needs. One was the need for continuing education credits for health physicists. I mean, it wasn't just the credit. These were meant to be very high-level courses, more rigorous than the continuing education courses. So rigorous courses for certified health physicists. In addition, provide the opportunity for people who are preparing for the exam to take these courses and increase their ability and performance on the exam.
And now, of course, there are dozens and dozens of these given at each meeting, and they're a very important part of the educational process.
When we first started, there were, I'm trying to think, maybe a dozen PEP courses on Sunday. And now there must be 3 dozen throughout the week. Yeah, it's really taken off. It's been a very successful program.
And thank the Lord, continuing.
Right. Yes, it is. Right.
So this takes us in your career to the you've established a new chapter. You're working with the National Society, and you took your own boards when?
I took my own boards,
Society
health physics boards, in 1977, and that actually turned out to be open the door for my next professional opportunity. I moved to Mayo Clinic in 1980, and they were looking for someone who could be their RSO who was certified by the American Board of Health Physics. I had extensive experience in training and education, and I had reached the professor level at Purdue, and also, of course, the radiation safety officer experience. I was assistant radiation safety officer at Purdue under Paul Zemer, but as time went on and Paul became president during that period, he delegated more and more to me, so I was able to learn a lot under his mentorship, and basically then go to Mayo Clinic and become the radiation safety officer there.
Now, at what point did you become involved with the NCRP?
NCRP was in perhaps the middle. I became most actively involved after my presidency. I was on a couple of scientific committees previously,
That's
just
what I'm talking
reports. Yeah, and I think the first report is in about 82 or 83 that I was involved with on one of these scientific committees where you study the subject for a couple of years and then write a report. And then most actively became a member of the council and in perhaps 97. Member of the nominating committee in 98, a member of the board of directors in 2000,
Wow.
Chairman of the nominating committee in 2000. So pretty active in the NCRP right now.
And how about the American Board of Medical Physics?
Right. In the middle 80s, there was a group of physicists in the AAPM that established the American Board of Medical Physics, and it had 3 principal areas initially. One was certification in diagnostic radiology, the other one was therapeutic radiology, and then the third one was medical health physics. So I became certified in medical health physics and then actually became active on their examining panel for several years. And eventually was appointed to the board in 1998, served on their board from 98 to 2000. So I've been on the American Board of Medical Physics, American Board of Health Physics, approximately at the same time. And that actually has helped me to understand some of the issues between the two boards, and hopefully as the two boards, as they work together, they will be able to work more closely together. And I think we can see on the horizon that in fact will happen.
Okay, and how about you've been about in the middle 90s, you became very active in the society board. When were you first on the society board?
Well, that goes back to the 80s actually.
Does it back to the
right?
80s? Okay.
When I moved to Mayo, I became president of their chapter in the early 80s, and then in 1986 was elected to the board, to the Health Physics Society Board of Directors. In 1988, and at the same time I was on the editorial board for the journal. I really liked the academic-oriented kinds of activities, so I was a member of the editorial board for the journal, really enjoyed that. In 1988, I became editor-in-chief of the journal. So
it's a very important job in the society, by the way.
Well, it is. It's an important job. It's also a very fun job, but it does take a lot of energy. takes a lot of energy. The journal is something that just keeps moving right along. Of course, you can't take a day off because the papers continue coming. Reviewers have to get their job done. So it's an activity that just continues without ceasing. So it does require some energy, but it's very, very rewarding.
Now, you had published in the journal earlier to the time that you took over as
Right.
as one of the as editor
Right.
of it, and you want to talk a little bit about some of the publications that
Well,
you feel are important in your career.
Sure. I published in a wide variety of journals. Actually, I brought along just a couple of papers just to point out some work that we had done earlier that is of interest today. At the plenary session this year, the emphasis was on medical health physics, and one of the papers was on CT, the doses from CT to children. Well, in going back to the 80s, in fact, I was very interested in the doses to not only patients but employees, of course, and they're in diagnostic radiology, the dose to employees is directly related to the dose to the patient because it's scattered from the patient. So in the late 80s, some colleagues and I did some work on determining patient radiation doses at a large tertiary care medical center. I just would like to point out that the largest source of collective dose to patients at the time was body CT, whole body CT, not whole body, body CT, body, whether it's thoracic or whatever. The body CT was the highest collective dose. Now, it wasn't the highest effective dose, a single source effective dose, because that, of course, is in your cardiology and other areas that use angioplasty, where the fluoro doses are very, very high. But the numbers of patients are low there compared to CT. So we pointed out back in that time period that the doses from CT collectively were actually quite high. We did not try to estimate the risks to the population from that. Personally, I think that's you're on thin ice when you try to use the LNT and say there are going to be a certain number of deaths from a medical procedure, but certainly
that's always
there is some
bothered
risk
me.
there.
Yeah, there's risk there, but to equate it to death risk
Right.
has always bothered me.
Yeah. So then we also followed that up with some related work where we were interested in, as I mentioned, the single doses, the effective dose from the single highest procedures were from fluoroscopy. So we did some follow-up work on how to reduce the dose from fluoroscopy.
And what year was that published?
This was published in 1990 in the Journal of the American College of Cardiology. The effect of pulsed progressive fluoroscopy on reduction of radiation dose in the cardiac cath lab. So, and I'll just point out one result which shows that the caseload from 1994 to 1987 increased 63% during that period. This is because this is the period when balloon angioplasty was really growing. And so our caseload increased 63%.
Wow.
Well, obviously, if your caseload goes up, the dose to workers is going to go up. So we worked on installation of this post-progressive fluoroscopy, and while the caseload went up 63%, our dose to personnel during that period went down 37%.
So says a lot for
that's the kind of
good
work that's
radiation
really
safety.
interesting.
Yes,
right? That's the kind of
absolutely.
work that's really interesting. So those kind of publications are rewarding.
And I take it that you'll continue to publish.
Oh yes,
because
right.
it's because it's a joy to do the kind of work that you do, and it's so nice that you are doing the type of work where you can come up with new ideas and publish them and share them, which is sort of a part of being a health physicist, isn't it?
Right. I would point out that the work of a health physicist has changed a bit over the last 30 years, 40 years. Going way back, much of the work was sort of directed at health physics, how to develop new measurement techniques and new instrumentation and new computer models and that sort of thing. Today we have an excellent cadre of tools that we can take to our customers And so today, much of the work done by a health physicist is this kind of thing, where you take the work to the customer, you work real hard to understand the customer's application, and then you use your health physics tools to reduce dose. And that's exactly what we did here.
Now you, along the way here, became editor of the journal, and it seems to me there were a number of changes that happened to the journal while you were editor. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, I'd like to do that. I'd like to share with you that I had the opportunity while I was editor-in-chief to participate in a decision to change publishers. The previous publisher was a little bit inflexible about what we could do with the journal. And so when the contract came up for renewal, we had the opportunity to look at another publisher, and the new publisher, Williams & Wilkins, was very flexible and made it very clear that this was going to be our journal. This was the Health Physics Society journal. So a couple of things I wanted to do and was able to implement, and they still continue today. One of the things I wanted to try to emphasize was the importance of operational radiation safety. The complaint over the years was the journal was too research-oriented, and the operational health physicist, it didn't contain any content for the operational health physicist. So one of the things I did was to establish a section called Operational Topics.
It's a very popular section, I might add.
Right. Well, that's still in there. Actually, it's been broken out into a separate quarterly journal now. It has really been popular, and it has grown. But initially, I didn't feel it was very successful because it was still in health physics. And so the operational health physicist was reluctant to open it up. So how can we get them to open the journal? Well, everybody likes pictures. So I began to put a picture on the cover. Now, you see a picture here and you wonder, well, let's see, what's that picture? I'm going to have to open the journal and read the caption to find out what that picture is. So when you find that caption and read it, it turns out it's in the table of contents. So now all of a sudden there's a table of contents, and maybe they'll read the table of contents and see a paper they're interested in, and then open the journal and read. And if they see the operational topics and enjoy that, they may actually recognize that there are other papers in there, research papers that have operational content or material that can be used operationally. So that was my goal, and I was very pleased that I was able to accomplish that during my term as editor-in-chief.
And you've had some spectacular pictures there, such as that bomb blast there, you know, which really is an attention grabber.
Right. Yeah, that was the idea, to try to get their attention and then look in the inside and see what that's all about.
And so that was really a big step forward. Also, I liked having the journal a little larger, which I think is one of the things that you did too, wasn't it? Was to increase the size, or was that done earlier?
That was done by Jen Ressler.
That was done by Jen.
Right, Jen. That's one thing the previous publisher was happy to do. They increased it from that smaller book size to the regular journal size. Yeah.
But it's. You know, I think the journal now actually has probably a larger circulation than it's ever had.
You know, I've been out of the loop for a while, so I don't know exactly what the circulation is. But it was going in from the middle '80s to the middle '90s. It was creeping up there a little bit. Yeah. I did hear this year that institutional subscriptions have gone up,
which is good.
Which is very good. Right.
Which is excellent. Now there's something else that's been published that you had a lot to do with, and that is standards. You want to tell us about the standards publishing? Sure.
I did have the again. I want to emphasize that my interest, in addition to being academic, the academic interests I have, I'm very interested in operational radiation safety and actually what we can do to bring academics to the operational world. So when I was invited to participate in the standards committee, there is an activity that I was very interested in, and that was incineration of institutional low-level radioactive waste. This activity started back in the 80s, I think. It finally got published in 1998 as a Health Physics Society standard. But even back in the 80s, we recognized that with the cost of radioactive waste going up, that we needed to take advantage of storage for decay and also incineration of very small levels of radioactive materials. So I was able to work with a group of people who had some incineration experience, and we wrote an incineration standard that can actually be used by small institutions, colleges, universities, medical centers.
You know, very important. Now there are actually dozens of standards that that the society has published.
Right.
And I think they're just going electronic with this now.
They
as a
are,
matter
yeah.
of fact.
We don't remember the exact history of the standards, but one of the things we did, Jen Ressler has to be given one of those given the credit for this is to change the standards from a standard that was sold by the society to one that was given to all members. So this was actually published with the newsletter. So every member got a free standard as being a member, and they came with the newsletter. Now they are going electronic, and that of course makes it even
More
easier,
available.
more available, more accessible, right? And you don't lose it. It's always there, right?
And by the way, you were elected a fellow not too long ago to the society, as I remember.
Right. Once you serve as president, you automatically become a fellow. So I didn't do anything in particular to earn that other than being president of the society.
Well, I think that from what I can see here, obviously you've contributed really a huge amount to the society over the years, and you continue to contribute. But you're on several committees now, as I remember.
Well,
you're very active.
I'm on the nominating committee now, and chairman of the President's Emeritus Committee. So I was actively involved this year in recruiting a Morgan lecturer, and we'll be chairing that effort next year. The President's Emeritus Committee has that responsibility. So we'll be involved in doing that. Continue on the nominating committee. There are other supportive roles that pop up now and then, and my long-range goal for continued participation in the society is to serve in a supportive role, to not step aside, but to allow the new people to come in and have the opportunity to take their turn in leadership within the society.
But still mentor.
But still mentor, yes.
Because because in a way you've been a mentor to an awful lot of health physicists over the years, haven't you?
Well, I hope so. Hope I've had some positive influence.
Oh,
on
I know you have. Now, would you like to maybe give some advice to people that are just coming into the field now? Where do you see health physics going, and what advice do you have for the youngsters that are starting our field?
Sure. I think there are a couple of pieces of advice that I would give someone just coming into the field that I think are particularly important. One is that they understand the principles of health physics. I really encourage people to study for certification, even if they don't want to become certified. Take the PEP courses, take the continuing education courses, study for the exam, and then I would encourage them to become board certified, because that is that somewhere down the line that will pay off.
Absolutely.
So be prepared, understand your subject very, very well, and the second is understand your customer's application. We shouldn't pretend to walk over to a customer and tell them how to do things if we don't understand what it is they're trying to do.
Exactly.
So whether you're in medical or industry or wherever it is, you really do need to understand that application. So those two things in terms of preparing yourself. Second thing, or then a sort of a second major category that I think is really important is teamwork. Now, we don't all have the opportunity to work in teams. Some RSOs are out there on their own. So they have to search out their mentors. But within the institution or within the industry, wherever they're working, there are people they can involve in what they're doing. And I know it's not easy in some cases. In other cases, it's much easier. I was very fortunate when I became editor-in-chief and president of the society to have a real good team back home, because both of those jobs require a lot of personal energy, but they require a lot of support from back home, considerable support. And I was fortunate to have good people that I was able to work into a team and delegate work to them, and they made sure that everything got done when I was gone.
Well, being the president-elect, you're on the road a huge amount of the time.
You are, yeah.
And that's quite an investment in time, among other things.
It is.
So as well as energy. And so you were one of the few people that was actually able to keep up a full-time job, weren't you?
Right.
During the years when you were president-elect and then president.
Right.
An immediate past president is pretty intensive too, as a matter of fact.
Right. It is.
But you're still heavily involved with the society, and hopefully the work that you do will continue to influence our members, and to just take the whole science of physics and medical physics and make sure that this science is a progressive science with always new things coming in. And do you continue to publish? Are you
Yes.
Are you able to work on papers?
Right. Not nearly to the same frequency. I'm more and more involved in administrative activities where I work at Mayo Clinic. I now, in addition to the teaching that I do, which doesn't lend itself to publishing, but it's a very, very rewarding experience, an important one, I'm more involved in administrative activities, directing the entire safety program now, and chairing some efforts for some safety efforts in the hospitals for accreditation purposes, and that just takes a lot of time.
And aren't you heavily involved with the NCRP also now?
Right. NCRP currently chair the nominating committee and on the board of directors and on a couple of scientific committees. I'm also a member of the NRC Advisory Committee on Medical Use of Isotopes.
It's a very important
So
one.
that takes a little bit of time. And that's an important one from the standpoint of being a liaison between the community and the principal regulating agency, the NRC. So I'm fortunate to be the first radiation safety officer to be a member of that committee. They expanded the committee a couple of years ago and have added RSO as one of the categories. And Keith Dinger actually nominated me, and I was appointed. So I've had the opportunity to represent radiation safety officers on the ACMUI.
Well, it's amazing that you're able to keep these many balls in the air at the same time. But I, for one, just want to thank you for the many contributions that you have made and continue to make to the overall profession of radiation safety, both in the medical and in the general health physics areas. And it certainly, are there any last words that you want to leave the viewers of this tape with, Dick, here?
Last words would be, don't be shy, get involved.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, sir.
Really enjoyed this.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, fellas, thank you. That's a take on this.